Greetings, heathens and heretics, and welcome to another episode of In the Abyss. This week it's myself, and I welcome back favourite hitter of things, Bean. Can't stay away. It's almost like well and truly part of the furniture now. This week we privileged this week because we've got David Gregor from Morta Skuld with us, all the way from whereabouts are you now?
I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Yeah, so you're a long way away. So
Absolutely.
thanks those for coming on and joining us. It's an honor for us because it's not very often we get to talk to someone who's been in the game for as long as you guys have, and it's an absolute belter of a new album just come out. So yeah, thanks for coming on and giving us your time.
Well, thanks for having us, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll talk straight about the new album, Creation Undone. So it's Sunday night as we're recording, and it just came out on Friday, and we had it for a couple of weeks, and we're both under the same opinion. We absolutely fucking love it. I'm really fussy when it comes to death metal, but this one, it definitely clicked, kind of thing. So, tell us a little bit about it and how it's all come about, and the recording and the writing, all of that. Just give us the general gist of the new record.
Sure. Well, the record's kind of we've been writing it over the past 3 years, and just kind of on and off. And we were working with a different guitar player for a while. Things didn't work out, and then Scott came back to the band, and it kind of really just started with him coming to a rehearsal day that we weren't rehearsing. So he came to rehearsal on the wrong day, and they were like, "Hey, can you make it?" I was like, "No, I got something going on." And then Scott and Eric started writing what became the song Painful Conflict. And they started writing, they got about halfway. And then the next week, when we all got together for practice, it was like, wow, this is kind of different. Because usually we would go through all the older songs or maybe go through the set first and then start writing material. And what we did this time is we just started off fresh and we just started writing new material. And it seemed to keep us just more organic. More fresh, more excited. We had more energy. So that's really how the record kind of started clicking for us. And I'd say most of these songs, I'd say about 85% of the songs, maybe even 90%, are maybe a year old, if that. So we kind of went through a lot of phases 3 years ago of starting to write. We didn't like a lot of some of the stuff we were writing, so we scrapped a bunch of stuff. And then once Painful Conflict started, we were like, wow, this is really cool. We think we're onto something. So, just really hammered away, just really, try to be as productive as possible every rehearsal, take advantage of all the time we had. There were a lot of riffs that just came up at practice too, because we do write as a band. And there were a lot of mistakes. I just come up with a riff and, hey, I like that. Let's use that. And I'm like, really? You want to use that? I was just goofing around. And, so a lot of it was goofing around and some of it was more thought out. And then as we started progressing in the songs, we had booked studio time with Chris DeJuric in Bell City in Racine, Wisconsin. Booked time with him, got in with him. I think it was maybe, and we only recorded on the weekends, so I think it was maybe 6 weekends, maybe 7 weekends. It took to finish the record. And once the record was done, we shipped it off to David Terrell and at Flatline Audio for mastering. And he just knocked it out of the park, man. I was just like, I don't even think it took us a week to go yep, okay, this is where we're at. This is what we want. And then, and then we just kind of just kept the ball rolling, and everything was submitted to Peaceville, and here we are today. A record came out on Friday, and I couldn't be happier. It definitely, I've got this will be my 7th record that I've done, and usually I know bands, oh, it's our best, and it's like I try not to say that because I'm too close to it, but I really do feel this is our best. I'm going to sound cliche, but I really do. And not only from my standpoint, but just the fans and the reviews we're getting and just everything pouring in. It's just been nothing but positive. So I'm very happy, and I appreciate guys like yourself, your support, and the fan support for making this record, hopefully album of the year, hopefully. Who knows?
It's a great sounding album. It's something you talked about was the energy. Writing as a band, that really comes across. It's got that. It's an intense album. The intensity's there, but underneath it all, it sounds like a band. just great sounds. You can hear there's movement in there. It pushes, it pulls, it has that swing to it. And that's cool. That's for me, that's what sets it above, a lot of other stuff out there.
Yeah, I was talking to Chris the other night, our studio guy, because we're friends outside of business, we're friends, and he's like, man, we just all must have pushed the right buttons at the right time, huh? And I go, must have happened. I said, because I've been doing this for 30 years, and I'm like, and you do a record and you hope it does well. Like our last record, Suffer for Nothing, unfortunately, I felt was a good record. I don't feel like it did very well, and I don't know if it's because of the COVID times and when it came out, versus like where we're at now. But I really feel that was a really decent record, and it really kind of didn't really go very far. So this record, I'm hoping we get to kind of redeem ourselves a little bit, and hopefully move a lot further down the line with this record.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point there about the timing of that last record and when it came out in COVID time, and I guess everyone's attention is elsewhere. People are worried about other things. Of course, you can't tour the record either.
No,
so promotion is limited there. But I would say Creation Undone there is something in that production sound, like you said, it just sounds a little bit more sophisticated. There's something else going on there. It's like, to my ears, it sounds it's kind of leaner. It's the image I've got in my head when I listen to it. It's like a boxer at the peak of his performance. He'll break your jaw, but he's
nice.
right on his feet as well. There's movement.
Nice. Yeah, like I said, I think just the stars aligned and the chemistry was there, and I don't know if it was just because of the way we wrote the record this time, instead of like expending our energy and focusing on set songs or songs we already wrote for the record. We just kind of went for it. Each rehearsal was like a fresh rehearsal, so we just kind of went for it. And some of the songs came together really quick. Some were like 1 or 2 rehearsals, some were 3, maybe 4, but it definitely was a smoother writing process, and I feel like it was definitely it was more exciting than the previous writing processes that we've done.
I think the point you make about COVID as well is an interesting one, because we're still talking about it, even though it feels like it was a lifetime ago. But
Right.
Now is a great time to be getting music out, especially in metal, because like every Friday there's like fucking 50, 60, 70 releases, and there's a real sort of buzz and excitement, and it feels like everything has come out of COVID and like, right, it's fucking lay down another marker now, and let's do what we do well, and that's. Yeah, it makes total sense. You get that feeling from this album.
Yeah.
Opportunity to get out, tour it,
Yeah.
and really hit it hard.
Right. And well, you kind of hit it on the head. There's so much coming out now. I mean, compared to like 3, maybe even 10 years ago, there wasn't as many bands. So there's definitely a lot of stuff coming out. There's a lot of competition, and so to speak. I kind of feel like Suffer for Nothing kind of got lost. I feel like, I feel like I like mailed it to somebody and it got lost in the mail somewhere, and
Right.
It's really too bad, because we really worked hard on that record too. But this record, for some reason, I just feel everything just kind of came together at the right time. The chemistry, just everything we were doing, and it was nothing conscious. I just think it just, like I said, it was just everything was being pressed at the same time and at the right moment, and we came up with this, and very, very proud of it. Very proud of this record.
Cool. Well, look, for what it's worth, about Suffer for Nothing, that was my stepping on point with you guys. So that record got passed around amongst some friends of mine. So that's where I kind of first heard you.
Oh,
and then
nice.
kind of went backwards from there, and obviously been anticipating this new record. So, it wasn't wasted.
That's good to hear, because like I said, there's a lot of really good songs in there. We still play Dead Weight a lot, which is probably one of my favorites off of there, and I know for the upcoming, got a couple of small runs coming up here. We're going to be playing a couple of new songs, and that was really hard to do, because hey, can you play the whole Dying Remains record? And it's kind of like, we were asked that last year sometime, and I really thought about it. I thought, man, that would be really cool to do. But I'm like, there's so many bands doing that, yeah, we're playing this record in its entirety, and then this record. And I thought, I don't know, man, it's like with the lineup I have now, we've progressed so much since the first or second record and all that. And so I know, coming from the current band lineup, they want to play the songs they're involved with, you know what I mean? Or that they recorded. Not that they don't or dislike playing the other songs, because that's not the case. but it's just, hey, we were a part of this. We really want to play this. So we really are trying to focus on, at least one song, from Wounds, and then we'll have a song from Suffer, and then we definitely want to play a couple of new songs off of this new record, which I told the guys that were going to be the promoters, bookers, whatever you want to call them, and I said, no, I said, we got to play a couple of these new songs. I said, this record is, I'm very proud of it, and I feel like we'd be doing the fans a disservice if we didn't at least play a couple new songs.
Yeah, and it comes back to that idea of all that energy you've captured, and keeping that alive for you on stage.
Yeah.
Showing off your, new material.
Absolutely. I mean, it's crazy because we were in the UK last year, and people ask me like, what, years ago we opened for Slayer in our hometown, and we've supported a lot of the bigger bands in town. But going over to Europe and being part of the UK Death Fest was like, I don't know, man. It took me back to being a teenager because I'm running around with all these bands that I've either played with before or that I used to write to or whatever. And I was running into all these bands in the UK. And I'll tell you, that was such a blast. And and our label's located in the UK. So I've never, in the 30 years I've been doing this, I've never been to the UK. So it was like a bucket list dream for me. And
Wow.
We are trying our hardest to come back over, but the economy everywhere is just doing so horrible that we're having troubles finance wise. But I'm really hoping that once this record starts catching on a little more, that maybe it might turn some more heads and maybe come back over. Because man, I had a blast in the UK, man. I just had it just bucket list for me, bucket list.
We are finding that certainly bands from the US that want to come to Europe now, after Brexit, it's either UK or Europe, and it's now rarely both because it just doesn't marry up anymore. And you're right, you can never, whereas you used to be able to do 20, 30, 40 dates in the UK and across Europe, that's now that's a hard thing to achieve. So yeah, it's just putting people off, and it sucks. It fucking sucks for us.
I was working with this one guy, and I said, hey, I don't even care if I come over for 5 shows. I said, I just want to come over to the UK and kick some ass and have fun with the fans. I mean, the fan, and I'm not knocking the US fans, because US fans are awesome too, but the UK fans just, we're not huge, we're not we're not whatever band you want to, we're not Cannibal Corpse and all that stuff. But when we came over, we had like several people like follow us around, and they were like, hey, do you mind if we get lunch with you? And you mind if we hang out? And we're like, no, this is great. And they were just the nicest people. And I think even after the festival, there was an after party at some bar down the street, I think from the Underground, I think it was called. And it was just amazing. I'm like, wow, like this is great. Like the pub was packed, and they're playing every death metal song you can think of. And it's just amazing. It was just such a great time. I mean, I just loved every minute of it, man. It was a blast.
There's a real hunger for it here at the minute. There's a strong UK death metal scene growing at the moment as well. There's loads of great bands coming up in the UK. So it's almost like kids of, that when we were there in the 90s at that kind of age, 15, 16, they're discovering all these new death metal bands, and they're local. And it's really cool,
Yeah. I get a kick out of it when, like, I don't know. I was interviewed a couple weeks ago by this one guy, and he's like, yeah, I'm like 22 or 23. And he's like, I just found out about you guys like 5 years ago. And I was just like, wow, like, that's just so incredible, because a lot of our fan base, they're older now, they're in their 50s and, might have kids or maybe moved on from the music, or maybe don't even listen to it anymore, And I think that's what's so unique about this music. When you're in it and you're a fan, or you're a musician that plays it and you're committed to it, you never leave it. You don't leave it. You eat it, you breathe it, you sleep it, and my girlfriend can attest to this. She's like, you're always thinking of the band all the time, 24/7. She's like, I can't sometimes even get you to come back down to earth, because you're always trying to think of like, what's the next move? What's the next move? Or what can we try to do next? Or, what can we do? And it's just passion. You got to have the passion. You got to have the drive. But yeah, the fans, you can, especially the younger kids now, they're definitely hungry for it. And, we got a new record for them. So.
Well, I'm 43 and I've only recently discovered you guys, and I'm happier for it. So
Nice.
no,
Hey, you're never too old. You're never too old, man.
no.
I'm 57, so
No. So you mentioned Peaceville as well being based in the UK.
yeah.
So how did you guys hook up then?
You know, man, oh God. So about 30 years ago, it was like 1990, well, 89, 90. I was going in the studio with the band I was with at the time, and things just weren't working out. So we made a lineup change. I got thrown into being the vocalist, which I had never done before. And we went in the studio with Eric Reif, who used to manage Obituary and Death. And we went in with him, and we cut a demo called Gory Departure. And that was just at the time where tape trading was just really booming. And I think I might have sent off maybe I don't know, 2, 3 tapes, maybe tops. I sent to these guys for like a review or something.
Yeah.
And it just was like wildfire. Like they dubbed it for their friend, and then their friend dubbed it for their friend. And like all of a sudden everybody's dubbing this tape. And it's just, I guess, going nuts. And so within like 3 or 4 months, I had another lineup change, and we wanted to go in and do another demo. And so I went in with Eric again, and that was the Prolong the Agony demo. And we went in with that demo, and then all of a sudden, like as soon as that demo came out, and it started just spreading like wildfire, we got a call from Johnny at Def Records, which was a subsidiary of Peaceville. And I'll never forget it. It was like 3 a.m, I think, or something like that. Wow. And I was, we were living in the band house, and my bass player's mom is like, "Hey, there's a phone call from you from the UK," and I'm like, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, it's some guy wants to talk to you." And he's like, "Hey, my name's Johnny. I run a label called Def Records, subsidiary of Peaceville Records. We noticed your demos just everywhere, and we really would like to sign you to a record deal." And I was like, "Wow, this is a dream come true." Because I always told everybody, because my family was never very supportive. They still aren't. I always told them, I said, I'm gonna put an album out. And they're, "Oh yeah, dime a dozen and whatever this." And I said, no, I'm gonna put a record out. I'm telling you. So when Johnny called, I was like, this is awesome. And then basically we had another lineup change, and that's when Kent Truckenbrough, the drummer, came in, and he just kind of came in and kind of raised the bar with his drumming. And we just started writing a lot of songs, and we were really influenced by a lot of the UK bands and the Peaceville roster, My Dying Bride, and Paradise Lost, and Autopsy, and and Bolt Thrower, and just all these amazing bands. And so we really loved that whole Europe movement and just the sound and feel of it. And I think it just came. That's how it kind of came about. And so the first record came out on Def Records, and then Def Records, I don't know if they went under, what happened. They went away. And then we were really fortunate enough where Peaceville's like, "Hey, we're going to keep 2 bands off of the Def roster, and you're one of them." And we were like, "Oh, that's cool." And that's just really how it started. And then from there, we went on to do As Humanity Fades, and then For All Eternity to complete the contract that we signed with them.
Right. Well, it's great to hear you mention My Dying Bride there, because I was listening to your new album today, and the stuff you're doing with the harmonics on the guitar there. I was like, where have I heard that before? And it was Turn Loose the Swans. That's
a great song. Oh.
Yeah, but I can hear it in the record you just put out. I can hear it's all in there. So
yeah,
that's cool
connection. Yeah, and I think it's kind of a weird thing too, because I've been hearing a lot of that. Like a lot of people are saying that they're hearing a lot of elements of thrash and death metal and black metal. And I was like, wow, that's really cool, because it was definitely nothing that was predetermined. It was nothing that we set out to do. I think it's just stuff that just came out of us naturally. And I kind of wanted, we really were like, in the past records, we were scared to do some things like, "Oh, we don't want to do that. That sounds too much like this band." And on this record, we were like, you know what? Who cares? If that sounds like a certain band, then that's like us paying homage to them without, like, I guess, exactly copying the riff or taking the riff, and making it your own. We just were like, oh yeah, like you said, pinch harmonic. I'm like, oh, I really like those, like Immolation. They do a lot of those. And I was like, oh, that'd be cool to kind of do one. And I think we were even listening to that record at rehearsal. And I was like, yeah, I said, that'd be really cool to throw one of those in there. So I think we just kind of really took what we really liked and just some of our influences, and we tried to kind of mix it in there, but yet not make it to the point where it's like, oh, okay, this is, that sounds like so and so,
Of
or
course, yeah.
you guys rip so and so off, and it's like, no, that's not the case.
Fuck that. I mean, at the end of the day, everything goes all the way back to the blues, and we've always had a thing on this podcast, certainly between me and Bean, that if there is that, you still got the roots of the blues. It doesn't matter how brutal the music gets. Having that and having songs, because death metal can be heavy and fast and brutal, but if you've got no songs, it just bores me shitless.
Yeah,
There's
or patterns
got to
too.
be songs,
right? Or like patterns, like guitar patterns. Like, well, I don't want to write a pentatonic. I want to write this, but it's like no matter how hard you try to be different, you're still in some kind of pattern.
Yeah,
it's still falling into some kind of pattern. So yeah, I completely agree with you on that. And it's like I think people just write what you love, man. I mean, because I think if you force it and it's something you don't, I think the fans see that, So you really have to write what you love and what comes out the best for you.
Don't overthink it.
Exactly. And that's something we didn't do on this record. We were like, we liked something, we rolled with it, And we really tried to make sure that the songs were able to breathe too. I didn't want to just throw vocals over stuff to throw vocals over stuff, because there are a couple of spots in a couple of different songs where I'm like, oh man, I could totally put a vocal line there. And I'm like, but I kind of really want to save it for this part because I think it'll make it more impactful. But then it kind of gives the music, the song a little bit area to breathe. And I always have this saying that I've used for years is I like to serve the song. So I like to serve the song. And if the song calls for a solo, it does. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. So I think once the song kind of comes to life, it'll tell you. It'll tell you what it wants. It'll tell you what it doesn't want.
Yeah, that's what it's just nice to hear, that everything just comes naturally when, that you can overthink. There's certain types of heavy music that winds me up sometimes. It pisses me off when I listen to it because it just thinks, I don't know, maybe this is music for musicians or something. People are just doing it just to show off
right.
and things like that. And I've always hated that. And it's just great to hear that it's just a natural process. You guys have been doing this for fucking years, yet.
Yeah.
When it's organic and it hits the nail on the head, which this album definitely does, it works. Yeah.
Well, and you have to play to your strengths too. You can't play to your weaknesses. So you have to really just focus on what you're good at. And I feel all of us are really good at what we do. And I think just as a culmination and all of us coming together in the songs, it just obviously it shows. And the production too. I mean, we're really like, I know on the last album, I really wasn't happy with the guitar tones. I really wanted something a little different. So I've changed rigs since then. And with my new rig, we went in and we were trying different. We plugged it in with my cabinet. And I'm like, oh, this is going to sound like $1 million, And Chris is like, it doesn't sound good. And I'm like, wow, that's so strange. I said, that's what I use live, And we tried a bunch of different heads and a bunch of different cabinets. And then really what it was, we found the one magic cabinet that worked with my rig. And I'm like, this is it. This is the tone. This is, I love this tone. This is what we're going to stick with.
So what is it? Is it giving away too much of a secret to what you're playing through?
I right now I have a Seymour Duncan power amp, so the Power Stage 700. So that's where all my power comes from. And then honestly, I use a cheap Zoom 3GN preamp pedal.
Right. Yeah.
That's it. That's all I use. It's like the diesel patch, I think it is. Yeah, it's a diesel patch. That's really the ironic thing is I never wanted to go that route. And my buddy Tim Beyer, he's in a band called Dusk, and he started using this setup. And when he was playing with us, and I was like, man, I mean, we must have went through 6 months of changes and adjustments. And, every time we come to rehearsal, I'm like, yeah, I really don't like that. And I'm not very technical guy. I like knobs that I can turn, and if I can't get a tone dialed in 5 minutes, I'm like, next. So we spent quite a few months on getting this tone. And every week I'd come to practice. Yeah, I don't like this. Can we change this? Can we change that? So there was a lot of tweaking of it. But I mean, honestly, it's the preamp pedal itself is under $200. You know what I mean? Yeah. And for me to get the tone I got, I'm like, forget about it, man. Because my buddies are like, oh, you should get a Fractal FM3 and you should get a what's the other one? The Lunchbox and all that. And I'm like, I just can't see spending $1,000 to $2,000. I only have one tone anyways that I need, and to me it's just kind of overkill. But for some reason, that power amp and that Zoom just really works well together.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's one of the things I've written down here. I've just tone in big letters. You know, it sounds great on the record.
Yeah.
It just does. I'm thinking about like, aside from the music, like lyrically, what's happening? Because you know, I'm looking at song titles like "Soul Piercing Sorrow," "Self-Destructive Emotions." What's going into that? You know.
Yeah. Well, as we all know, we had some dark times in the past couple of years, and I really think, well, I should say, I know it affected all of us. It affected all of us.
Yeah.
I've yet to come up to one person to say to me, like, "Yeah, I'm unscathed. It didn't do anything to me. I'm still the same person I was 3 years ago."
Yeah.
And I've noticed that with a lot of people, close friends of mine, relatives, family members. Everybody's kind of changed a little bit in their own perspective. And I just think it was one of those things that we were all in it together, and it just kind of affected us differently. And I wanted to write about that. I know with Soul Piercing Sorrow, I know Eric House, our drummer, his grandpa was going through dementia. And
Wow.
it was like, wow, like I had just met his grandpa like maybe a year or two before this. And, just really nice guy. And I had the opportunity. We were driving somewhere. His mom does these paintings, and she gave us a couple paintings to hang up in our house, and we're transporting them. And I was sitting up in the front seat. His name is Joe, and it's like he didn't really know where we were going. He didn't know really who I was, and it just really saddened me to see that. And I wanted to write about it, and that's pretty much all. I always write about what I experience in my lifetime. And it could be the simplest thing. It could be a homeless person on the street. It could be a relative of mine. It could be my son. I mean, it could be anything. But if I feel strongly about something emotionally that moves me, I really want to write about it. And the whole premise of Creation Undone was that I kind of feel like, we were given, God gave us this earth, and I feel like we just pissed all over it, and that's, yeah, and that's kind of really what the premise of the record was like. We have this great creation, and here we're just kind of like, yeah, who cares? Kind of, so it was just a lot of sadness in the past couple of years. A lot of people dying and a lot of people getting sick and stuff, and it was just it just fueled me to write about it.
In the time that Morta Skuld were away, then in between, did you stay in the business? Did you stay in the music game, or did you take yourself away from it completely?
No, I stayed in the business. We tried for like I think at least a good year or two to resurrect the band from 98 to 2000, and we just couldn't find any players, because at that time the music had changed. Death metal was kind of on the low end, and even though a lot of bands still stayed the what do you call it, stood the test of time, stayed it out, which is great. And I kind of look back and I kind of wish we would have done the same. But unfortunately, I was unable to find people that wanted to play death metal anymore. So I decided to start my own band again from scratch, and kind of a little bit more. I didn't want it to be as heavy. I wanted it to be a little bit more accessible, maybe a little bit more radio friendly. And I don't mean like pop radio, but I meant like more like liquid metal, serious, like kind of that type stuff. Yeah. So it was more of like if I had to describe, people categorized us as new metal because the vocalist we had would do brutal vocals, but he would also sing as well. I kind of called it like a watered down Fear Factory kind of type thing, or at least that was the goal in my mind. And so I had done that. Oh God, I think that took probably 2 or 3 years to get up off the ground. And then we did 2 records. We signed a deal with Rock Ridge Records, and we put out a record. And then we did like just a real short run. And then the band kind of had everybody just kind of had their own idea what they really wanted to do. And I was fighting for custody of my son at the time. So I really wasn't able to tour much. And they didn't like it, so they decided to kind of go their own way. And right around 2010, I was kind of bandless again, and I'm like, wow, I'm like, why does this keep happening to me? 98, I ended up bandless. I'm bandless again. So at that point, I'm like, okay, another band's gone. I don't know what to do. And Eric Reif had been doing the reissues for Death Through Relapse, and he had contacted me about taking our demos that he had produced with us and putting them on CD. And then basically he's like, hey, why don't we throw out, a compilation on Relapse with these songs? And I was like, okay. And that's kind of really how it started for me to come back to this band and kind of resurrect it again.
Have you found that there's, in the two periods of Morta Skuld, how the business has changed? Has it changed for the better, or has it changed for the worse?
Oh, man. I don't know if the business was any good, period. I think back in the 90s, I think the business was probably at its best, in the 90s. Oh, man, that's a good question. I think it's become a lot more difficult. Mm-hmm. Getting the budget you need, getting the right people in place, getting the right promotion, getting the right publicist. So I find that to be a little challenging. We've had some really cool opportunities. So I'm not going to say, poor me or sound like I'm coming off like an egotistical dickhead or anything. But no, we've had some cool opportunities. But yeah, as far as like getting on with some major tours, just really hasn't happened for us yet. And that's fine too. I think the tours that we are doing and that we have done have really worked out well for us. And the one thing that I honestly can say about it is, when we do the tours and we're the headliner, if it fails, it's because of us. If it succeeds, it's because of us. So we're not going out, so like when we go on a tour and we're headlining, whether it's with, Mutilatred or Obscene or Throne, and these are all young and upcoming bands, and we love going out with young and upcoming bands because we love the energy. But when we play a show and we're the headliner, and we're playing in front of 50, 60 people, we know that they're generally there to see us. Yeah. It's not that we, like when you headline, let's say for Obituary, well, most of the people are there for Obituary and probably a couple of the other bands as well. But we know that when we're playing by ourselves, we know that we are the, they're coming in to see us. And so I think that's the one takeaway that I have, is that even though we haven't been on any big major tours, the tours that we have done are special and they're intimate. And, some people too, they're like, hey, can I get a picture with you, or do I have to pay for it? I'm like, pay for it? I'm like, dude, we're so accessible, it's ridiculous. You know what I'm saying?
That's the world we live in now.
Yeah, well, no, we drink with the fans, we hang out with the fans, that's what it's all about. If the fans weren't there, we wouldn't be there. No. So we value our fans very, very highly, and we appreciate their undying support, man. It's just, it is overwhelming sometimes, when you're at a show and you see this young kid come up and he's like, oh, I freaking love your band, and I've been following you for 5 years or whatever, and this and that. And you're just like, wow. And it just fills me with so much joy going, this kid loves our music. All of the behind the scenes stuff that people don't see, driving to practice, rehearsing for 2 or 3 hours, coming home at night after work, rehearsing by myself for an hour or two, or writing a song, or, running to the store to make, set list copies and all this stuff and all the work that goes into it. And then you have that one kid that comes up to you, or 2 kids or 3 or whatever, and it just makes my day. It makes what everything that I do just worth it.
It's why we're sitting here having this conversation. We were saying this to another guest a couple of nights ago, that the reason we're sitting here on a Sunday night talking about heavy metal is for all of that. Yeah. No other type of music has this, I don't think. This kind of, whatever you want to call it, as cheesy as it may be, community, I don't know. It's fucking true.
Yeah, I would say that community. That's a good word. And I think it is. I think it's a very tight-knit community too. It's some of it's getting a little strange out there, of course, with the social media and all that. But other than that, I definitely think that it's definitely a very solid community, and it's a great genre to be part of.
Yeah, yeah, it fucking is.
Yeah.
What's the plan now for the next 12 months? The record's out. I'd imagine you'll get out on the road now, will you, and play?
Yeah, we are going out in 2 weeks with our buddies in Skeletal Remains.
Nice.
We're bringing along. They're bringing along Oxygen Destroyer with them. So we're going to do 4 West Coast dates, and then we come home for I think a week and a half, and then we are going to be going to South America with Malevolent Creation for
Nice.
8 dates.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I really tried to get the UK in there, man, but I just could not. Couldn't get any promoters to bring us at this point. So I'm hoping as this album continues to grow and breathe that hopefully maybe somebody with the right ears, because we'd love to come back over to UK.
We'd love to have you, absolutely. And I do genuinely believe this new album's going to turn a lot of heads. I really think that,
I really hope so, because the reviews I'm getting, I'm like, holy crap! Like, I don't ever remember getting this much press off of this. So I really have to thank, Sarah and Austin, and there's another guy in Spain, but I don't know his name. But those 2 guys really just putting the press together, especially Sarah with all the UK press and it's all the overseas stuff. It's just been amazing. And compared to like Suffer for Nothing, where we were like, what happened? Where it was like the record came out and it was like, who? Like, where did, like, you have a record out? We're like, yeah. And like, we've been playing the shows, like you mentioned before, you couldn't tour. So when we were able to go out, people were like, oh, you got a new record? And we're like, oh, we didn't know nothing about that. And I'm like, yeah, wow. We got a new record, So yeah, I definitely, I'm really hoping. And if not this year, I'm hoping at least next year. But I really am making it a very strong point to come to the UK. So
yeah.
What about the European festival circuit? Because that's such a huge thing for any band now. There's a festival every weekend across Europe now.
Well, what's happening with that too is, man, with just the way of the inflation in our economy on your end, our end, we really haven't had as many offers as we had in the past 2 years. So in the last couple of years, we had a lot of different offers. This festival, that festival. Like I said, we did the UK Death Fest, we did Killtown Death Fest. So what's happening is from what I understand, what I've been told is the promoters are trying to, they're trying to keep Europe bands in Europe, and it's just easier on the budget in that respect. So we have just really had, like I said, and I've reached out to several festivals, and they're just not willing to bring us over right now. The budgets just don't seem to be where they need to be, which is unfortunate, because I really think that I shouldn't say think. I would love us to come over to play some more festivals. I think it would be awesome.
I don't want to go down too much of a rabbit hole with this, but there are certain things that anger us. I mean, you look at things now, talking about finances, you look at things now like ticket prices, for instance. Obviously, it's a completely different scale, but we were discussing the Pearl Jam are playing a couple of stadium shows in the UK, and the tickets were about 150 pounds to start with, and then Golden Circle standing were over 300 pounds.
Damn.
So that money, that money is going somewhere.
Yeah. Well, that's like Kiss. They were playing somewhere here in the US recently, and somebody told me like a front row ticket was like over $1,000 US. And I'm like, what?
You're pricing out normal fans.
I don't get, and I don't get it either. I don't know why. I mean, I get there's an overhead. You have to pay bands. You have crew to pay. I've done stagehand work before. I've worked for production. I've worked for big bands before, so I know how it goes. But yeah, I agree with you on that. I really think that, it should be affordable. It really should be,
always.
And that was one of the reasons why we started a relationship with Peaceville again, because I had a lot of fans saying, hey, we really want to buy Dying Remains, but an original copy is like $200 or whatever it is. And so that's when I went to the label and I said, let's reissue this thing and let's make it affordable for people, because I felt bad, telling people like, I'm sorry, I don't have any copies to sell you, but I really don't want you to pay, 150 pounds or $200 for a record. I just think that's ridiculous. Yeah. So I agree with you. I think the pricing, and I think and I think it's just because they can. I don't think it's really.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's that they don't want to reduce the ticket prices. I think it's just that they can do it, and that's why they want to do it.
And people will pay it, and those stadiums will be full of people.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. Not me. I won't be there.
Me neither.
So yeah, just to touch, because you mentioned Dying Remains there's turned 30. What, last year?
Last year.
How does that feel?
Man, makes me feel old. a little bit. I don't know, man. It's like, I'm 57, and I just look back at that record, and I've had a lot of fans say like, "Oh, can you write, the next record? Can you write like a Dying Remains record?" And it's like, well, no, we can't, because I'm not in that frame mind anymore. It's been 30 years. I'm a different person. I've evolved as a musician. I've evolved, just as a human being. I'm not in that same spot. So it's really hard to kind of transport yourself back and go, hey, well, what was I thinking then, or what did I do? But I will say this much. The anniversary, it's cool. It's really cool, man. It's like, how many, I mean, I know there's a lot of bands out there, but how many bands can say that you have that one cult record that diehard fan record that everybody's either heard or, people want, or it's one of our best sellers. It still sells records today. So, I mean, it moves really well.
Yeah, that's got to feel good. Yeah. And with 30, well, I guess more than 30 years of experience under the belt, what would you say to that band, the version of you that recorded that album way back then? Anything that any pearls of wisdom you'd pass on to that young man?
Oh God, yeah. I would have said get an education first. Get an education. Get something under your belt, so that way, if because I've always put my eggs into one basket, and that was this band. And I've been like many other people in other death metal bands that have been around for the same period of time. You struggle a lot. That whole moniker of starving artist is very true. There've been a lot of months and years where I didn't have two nickels to rub together, and struggling to pay my car payment and keep up on my child support at the time, and whatever have you, put food on the table, make the rent, So I would go back and I would tell that person, like, get something in your toolbox, so that way, if down the road, if things don't work out, or you really need to pay the rent, you have something, you have a skill behind you to do something, Or I would have told myself to stop screwing around and really pay attention to the music lessons that I was taking, because I am an impatient person. So I really am. When I first started playing guitar, if I couldn't get something, I was like, screw this, forget it, I'm done. I'm moving on to something else. Anything that was difficult for me, and I don't know why, it's just how I was. I think what it was an immediacy thing. I wanted to play it, and I wanted to play it now. And I didn't want to take the 6 months to learn how to play it to get to that point. So I would probably tell myself that too, is maybe to have a little bit more patience, maybe buckle down on the, maybe learn a little bit more music theory and stuff like that, because then what I could be doing now is I could use that towards my advantage, and maybe, writing a soundtrack or playing on a soundtrack, or, you know what I mean? I could have used it to make money in those aspects, but right. I'd probably say buckle down in music, or get an education first. That's what I would say to myself.
Okay. What came first then? Playing the guitar or listening to metal? Which influenced the other when you were
listening to metal first.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I can't tell you how many times, man, in high school, I lived 2 blocks from my high school. So I cut out of class every chance I could. It's awful to say, but I'd cut out of school, and I'd go home and I'd put on a record and accept Balls to the Wall, or Riot, Restless Breed, or Saxon, Denim and Leather, or, oh my God, I was young. All I wanted to do was be a musician. I had nothing. I didn't want to be a lawyer. I didn't want to be a doctor. I didn't want to be nothing else. I want to be a musician. That's something I've always dreamed of doing. And when I wasn't in school, or when I was cutting out, I'd be sitting there with a beer or a pint, just kicking back. And 16 years old, I'm in my bedroom, locking the doors. Hopefully my mom didn't come in and find me. Listening to the stuff, and I just love music so much. And the Ozzy was like my first big inspiration that really made me want to sing or be a vocalist. And then Randy Rhoads, oh my God, I want to be like this guy. But yeah, I did not want to put in the time to be like that guy. So when I stumbled on to Death Leprosy, I was like, this is it. This is it. I can do this. I can play like that. I know I can. And that's what really, really sparked that. Like, it was done after that. As soon as I had that Leprosy tape in my hand, it was done. I was over. I'm like, this is it. This is what I want to do.
All of that, everything you've just talked about there has led to this point where you've just dropped a fantastic new album.
Yeah.
You're living the dream, man.
Yeah. I don't feel like it though. I don't feel like I am though sometimes.
Yeah,
I really don't.
Be careful what you wish for, right?
Oh man. That has been the moniker for the past like 6 weeks now. I'm like, because I remember when this first started, I'm like, when we first started the campaign, I was like, I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't really see like, it's, and then all of a sudden, every weekend, I think for the past 4 weekends, I've been sitting in my man cave like this, speaking with people like yourself, going over the interviews. And like yesterday, yesterday I had 5. So I had 5 yesterday. So, at first I was kind of like, wow,
good sign. That's a good sign though.
Yeah, absolutely. And then like the week before, I think I had 4, and then today I have 1, and so I mean, it definitely is a good sign. And I'm thinking like, wow, man, did we just hit pay dirt with this record? Because I mean, the reviews too. Everybody's just been so amazing, and just the feedback has been so good. I'm a little overwhelmed right now, and like I was saying, I don't feel like I'm living the dream, so maybe I should pinch myself or sock myself once and see if I can wake up.
Made the point earlier when you talked about, I guess, there is another side to it all though, which is just all the hard work that goes into it, the time, the energy, the effort, everything that's kind of, might stress you out during the day, all for that moment where you're either on stage or in the studio recording those songs. But, the reality is it's not all that moment. There's a lot of sacrifice that goes into it as well. So, that's the reality of it, really, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's like, like if the fans could, if like, this is kind of stupid, but let's say I was on a reality show or something and the cameras are on me, like fans would like, really? Like, is this what I mean, seriously, like, I mean, I spend so much time here in the man cave and I got my amp set up next to me. I got my guitars. And I mean, there's so much time that just goes into it. And not even that, but even like at work, I have a day job. And at work, I remember this last week, I was getting so stressed and frustrated because I had all these outside interviewers that wanted to interview me, and I'm literally like between that and then talking to the publicist and trying to get everything set up, and I'm like, dude, you're trying to work a day job here, and I'm literally handling all the business for the band on top of it during that time, and it just got me a little frustrated, and I had to just step back and breathe a little bit and just go, it's going to be okay. This is what you wanted. You got it. You shut up and move forward.
the whole balance between, like you say, day job and being in a band. I think that's, back in the day, in the 90s, were you full-time Morta Skuld, or were you sort of day jobbing it back then as well? Did you ever go full-time?
It kind of went and came. Like there would be I don't know. Back in the 90s, I was in and out of jobs. I mean, I still am, a lot of jobs don't let you go to tour. So when it comes that time, like in the last 5 years, I've had to switch like jobs like 3 times, due to that. But back in the 90s, it was a lot easier though. It was a lot easier because, well, the cost of living wasn't as bad. I mean, I remember like a buddy of mine, we would this guy was a character, I'll tell you. And he'd come over to my house and be like, all right, I don't have any money. You got any money? I like, no, I don't have any money. All right. So he would go and he would hit up these, I don't agree with what he did, but he'd go up and he'd hit up these women, these girls that had a crush on him, and he'd be like, yeah, can you give me $5, whatever. So we drive around, I drop him off at these houses, whatever. He'd come out with like $15, $15. And we would literally put $5 in the gas tank, $10 for beer, and we were set for the rest of the night.
Oh,
like
man.
$15. Yeah, it was like ridiculous. So I think it was just easier back then to make a living. I know there for a while I was just doing the band, and we were like selling our cassette tapes, and we'd sell easily 150 cassette tapes at a show in one swipe. So I mean it was a lot easier back then. But I did have my day jobs, here and there. And then once, man, I made the foolish mistake of getting married to the wrong person, and we had a kid. And then once that happened, it was like immediate divorce. And next thing you know, I'm up to my ears in bills. So then it was like, oh, gotta get the job to pay the lawyers and pay all the fees and everything. So, but I have had jobs, in and out, and throughout my career of being a musician. I would say though earlier in the '90s, it was more full-time musician than job, and now it's like I got the full-time job, and I kind of we fit the band in pretty much where we can.
Right. Yeah. And it's you're talking about stress there. I mean, Tregenza and I were talking about this the other night. And the beautiful thing about the metal scene is it's the thing that gets us through those moments. It's what we keep coming back to. It just keeps driving us through those times when it's tough, it's hard. There's debts, there's whatever else might be going on, stresses, relationships. Always comes back to metal, though. It fuels us for the next challenge.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
exactly that.
Yeah. Even as a like I mentioned you before, as a young teen, I grew up in a really awful household, just a lot of abuse going on, pretty much my whole life, pretty much. And music was an escape. It was an escape for me. I could put the record on, put the headphones on, and really get into the music. And it was like, and I was even working. I remember when I was in high school, all through high school, I worked too. And I was working in this restaurant, and I'll never forget it. My senior year, they were like, "Hey, we got a work release program, so you would go to school half a day, and then the other half a day you would go to a job." I already had the job, so they were nice enough to say, "Hey, will you come in the morning and you vacuum the floors?" No problem. I put on the old, the 90s Walkman, put in my cassette tape, put the headphones on, vacuum away, and didn't have a care in the world, man. That's what I loved about the 90s. Didn't have a care in the world. It was all about the music, and you lived it and breathed it, and it was some really good times, But even now, I use it as a therapy. I come on that one riff, or I walk away from rehearsal, this one riff, and you go home and you go, "Man, that is such a cool riff." And then it really inspires you to create that next riff, and then the next riff, and it just kind of has this never-ending cycle.
It's the perfect catharsis. In it, Friday night, a couple of nights ago, we went to see. It was my first show this year. Went to see Suffocation and Sanguisugabog, and come out of that show, and it's just like suddenly I just feel better. I've had that now. I've had that sort of fix that I've been missed this for like 2 or 3 months. Feels good.
I was just talking to Terrence via social media not long ago, man. So great band. Love that guy too, man. Their new album's really good.
Yeah, they were fucking incredible, to be fair.
Oh, I believe it, man. They bring it. They bring it. They're no joke.
Yeah.
They're another one that I'm new to, and I thought that Bean was going anyway, so fuck it, I'll come along for the ride. And yeah, they were absolutely fucking savage. They really
nice.
were. Yeah.
I mean,
another band that have been doing it for 30 plus years, and they're still fucking delivering it, and they're delivering it hard. You can't.
Man, I'll never forget. It was was it 96? It was 96 or 97. I can't remember. And we were playing the Milwaukee Metal Fest, and somehow I do not know how this happened, but Suffocation was going on right before us. And I was like, "No fucking way. Are you kidding me, dude? You're going to do that to me?" I looked at the promoter. I said, why, what did I do to you? I said, "Seriously?" And he's like, "You'll be fine, So I'll never forget it, because Frank and I were really good friends at that point. We were, writing each other and all that. Unfortunately, we've drifted out of communication over the years. But the common thread that we both had was we both got married and had a kid. And he had a kid at the same time. So that was kind of a common thread for us. But I'll never forget it. I'm on the side of the stage and I'm just shaking my head. And I'm going, "God, this is going to suck. Like, how do we follow this, right?" And he comes off the stage and he looks at me and he goes, "Hey, you're up." shoves a microphone in my chest. He goes, "Your turn." And I'm like, "Seriously, man?" I go, "Well, how do you expect this to fall?" He goes, "Shut up, you'll be fine." And I'm just like, man, I was like, damn it, But we went out there, we did fine, but still, it was like, oh man, you're putting us on after those guys? Thank you.
Yeah, it's an intimidating prospect.
Oh, it was real intimidating because those guys are stupidly good, man. It's like, man, really? You're gonna do this to me? That'd be like, well, Slayer's gonna go on before you, and then you can go on afterwards. Like, oh, okay, thanks. That's gonna go over real well,
Yeah.
He's fucking good. Look, one last thing. You like you keep saying you've been doing this for many years. You say
Yeah.
you're 57. I don't believe for
Yeah.
a minute you're 57. Fuck that.
Oh, thank you.
But what do you want to achieve now? This album's out. What do you actually want to do over the next few years? Do you want to just keep going or just sort of see how it kind of pans out?
Yeah, honestly, what I would love to happen is I'd love for us to do the do Europe or the UK festivals more. So I'm really hoping that comes to fruition. I would love that. I would love to see us do maybe get on with a regular full blown tour would be nice.
Yeah.
I just it's just something it's so hard to predict or because the times and climate we're in, it just keeps changing. So it just depends on really if if the good Lord allows me to do it, which is great, I'll keep doing it. But I'd really love to get on like some kind of festival circuit over in Europe would be great, or even a tour over in Europe would be awesome. We were supposed to do one right before the pandemic hit. We were supposed to do one, and then everything just kind of went to heck. And it was like, oh man, and a couple of countries are like, oh, if you get sick, you can't go home. And we were like, oh, geez, that's not good, so a little intimidating.
When you look back on it, it just seems fucking crazy, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. And like I said, when we came over last year to UK, it was just amazing. Like you could just tell that people were really starved to see just death metal bands. And I mean, maybe even Nuclear Assault was there too. I mean, those guys were just phenomenal. And that was their last show. I was so lucky because I had seen them or 32 or 33 years prior to this, before I was even a musician or even in a band. I had a friend of a friend that knew them, and we went and saw them. They played Wisconsin, and we went and saw them. And I remember getting in good with the band, and they wanted me to be their roadie. And I'll never forget, I think it was like 19, and I was so scared of going on the road. And, it was a foreign process to me at the time. And I was like, oh, I'm really scared. I'm like, I can't do this, man, And then meeting up with John Conley, literally 30-some years later, and I'm watching them. I'm on the side of the stage, and I'm watching these guys, and I'm going, this is fucking amazing. And the cool part about it was he's on stage, and he's kind of jumping. I mean, that guy, he's 60. He's 60. And he's jumping around like a madman. Like, I'm like, this guy's got energy. So he's playing, and he kind of looks at me, and he kind of nods his head. I'm like, what's this guy nodding to? And on the side, and on the riser, they're like cans. I don't know if they were beer, seltzer water. Don't know what they were, because it was UK brand, so I wasn't familiar with it. I think it might have been seltzer water. But anyways, and he's nodding like he wants a drink. I'm like, and he kind of keeps motioning for me to come out, and I'm like, what? Like, you want me to come out there? And he's like, yeah. So, because he even took a part, and he goes, hey, give me a drink. So I literally went out on stage while they're in mid-song, cracked open a beverage, and he leaned back. And I'm just feeding him this beverage while he's still playing. And I was like, dude, that was so amazing. So when they were done, I said, John, I know you probably don't remember me. It's been like 35 years, this and that. I said, man, and we just hit it off, and we just started talking about all kinds of stuff. And that was one of the highlight bands between that and Carl, formerly a bolt thrower of Memoriam.
Yeah.
Another one. They played in Sheboygan, which is probably about an hour north of me here, hour and a half. And I never forget it. It was in like January, February. I think it was 91, maybe 92-ish. and Bolt Thrower was playing, and it was this a club called Croatian Hall. So it was this older church that was turned into a venue, and it was a real hot spot. I mean, we would play there by ourselves locally with a couple of local bands and drawing like 300-400 people, like with minimal effort. And so Bolt Thrower was playing, and I'm like, oh man, and Carl and I have been conversing through the mail for years. So I was like, I got to get up there. I got to get up there. So I'll never forget it. I come in, and he's on stage mid-song, and he sees me. He's like, oh, Dave, mate. Oh, yeah, come on. I mean, totally not even singing the lyrics to the song. And he's literally talking to me and telling me to come up to the stage and get back there and all that stuff. And having a conversation while he's on the microphone and having a conversation with me. And so we took this picture. It kind of looks like, and it's a really old picture. And when I look at it now, it looks like I kind of have a crush on him. So I'm kind of like leaning on him. You're like, oh, you know, it's so weird. So when I found out for the UK Death Fest, and this was weird, they were supposed to play where we were playing, and we were supposed to play where they were playing. But somehow something got mixed up and it got reversed. So when I found out, I think it was like 6 p.m. or something, that they were supposed to go on at this club. So I'm literally scrambling from watching Nuclear Assault, running down the street in England, not knowing where I'm at, find the venue, run in the venue. I literally try to, I mean, in the crowd, it's so many people. I'm like kind of fighting the crowd to get up to the front. I get up to the front and he's like, oh, hey, hey, come on. Same thing. So we're backstage. He's got no shirt on. He's sweaty. I'm sweaty. And this time we took this really weird, like just the weird look on our mugs is just hilarious. It's kind of like, cheese, you know, and so that was another one for me, was just getting a picture with him again after so many years. And just admiring these guys for what they do. And it was just, man, the blast. I'll never forget that show.
And that's why we do it.
Yep.
Memories like that. Look, it's been an absolute fucking blast having you on here. It really has. It's been, you know, great stories. The album's out now, Creation Undone. Look, if you're a fan of death metal and you're not familiar with Morta Skuld like I wasn't 6 months ago, go and check it out, because it is an absolute fucking belt. It really is. It's going to be one of the best death metal albums out this year. I can see it.
Thank you.
Just fucking go and get involved. You know, yeah. Get involved. It's a fucking must. So it's out on vinyl as well, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. There's a black and a green, and then CD, and then Spotify and all the good outlets.
All that shit. You've got to have colored vinyl these days. It's like black.
Oh,
you know,
it's a must. Oh, yeah. I know. I feel like I begged the label, like, come on, please, can we have a colored vinyl? And they were like, I don't know, man. You know, that costs money. And we're just like, oh, come on, you know. So we it was funny because he sent me like a little mock layout of the different colors we could pick, and we were like, oh man, which color really goes well with the cover? And so so the album is kind of like a dark green, and it just looks killer. And we got our copies like a couple weeks ago, and we threw that vinyl on after a rehearsal, and we're like, wow. Yeah. Like, it just sounds so good. So yeah, it's green. Yeah, you have green, black, whatever one, you know.
Yeah, I'm
prefers.
I'm going to go and pick that up. It's 100%. Yeah, again, thank you so much for coming on. I hope everything goes well for the next year, and everything works out for you guys, and hopefully be great to see you in the UK at some point.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you guys, man. It's been a blast. I thank you for taking your time out on Sunday. And absolutely, please. Yeah. Hopefully the stars will align, and we'll be able to come over to UK, and then we can have a couple pints together.
We'll be there. We'll be there.
Awesome. I look forward to it.
All right. Yeah, that's it for this week. We'll be back again next week at some point. Again, as per usual, don't fucking know what, because that's the way we do it. But we will be back in a week or so. And until that point, thanks for listening, and stay metal.